Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings. This is Rudowski of WeAreChange.org, and in this video, I specifically wanted to talk about how we are doing better off than ever in recorded human history, but also at the same time, how we are absolutely yeah, just totally outright And what I wanted to do specifically in this video is to go over the raw scientific data, talk about the problem, and then lay out some of my own conspiratorial opinions about why this is actually happening. Before we get into any of that, thank you to everyone who supports us on patreon.com/wearechange, where we have many entry levels, and your support allows us to be here and not become corporate sellout pigs, or bipartisan click-tick shills, which are so prevalent here on YouTube. Now, being on social media, and especially watching the mainstream media on the boob tube television, you would think that we were living through one of the worst times in human history. And even though that kind of thinking is great for marketing and advertising, it is completely fucking not true. A recent survey found out that only 6% of Americans believed that the world is becoming a better place. And even though that type of thinking is great for marketing and advertising, it is completely not fucking true. And if you actually look at the raw scientific data, especially the short history of our global living conditions, that is absolutely the opposite of what's happening. If you look at the world population living in extreme poverty, that number has been going down throughout human history and has rapidly declined since the 1950s, and it's continuing to decline. If you look at the number of people who could read and write, that number is also dramatically going down and is at its lowest than it ever has been throughout recorded human history. Global child mortality rates also going down throughout human history and continuing to decline as of now. People having more political freedom and being more equally represented has also gone up throughout human history, as well as the levels of education that people receive. And right now, arguably in recorded human history, we are doing better than we have ever had before. And even though you're not going to hear this from the fearmongers, whether the politicians or the mainstream media, but humanity is progressing upwards towards a better path. But even though things are getting better all around us, especially throughout the entire world, there's a new problem emerging, especially in Western societies, specifically the United States, to where a new study came out that found that this new generation of young Americans are overweight, unhealthy, suicidal, and addicted to alcohol and drugs at levels that this study calls at all-time highs. And that study corroborates other studies that have been done previously that shows the younger generation being more depressed than ever, having less empathy than ever, and also marrying less than the previous generations before them. Right now, obesity among U.S. adults is at an all-time high. A recent government study even found that 1 in 3 U.S. adults eats murder burger and other horrible fast food at any given day. The study also pointed out how 1/3 of American teenagers have not read a book in a year and are spending more time online than ever. Drug overdose rates have been soaring within the last few years, from 2014 to 2016, increasing by more than 25% each year. Death from liver disease has increased by about 11 to 8% per year, and now suicide has become the second leading cause of death for Americans between the ages of 15 and 24. Along with the rates of empathy going down and the rates of depression going up, you do kind of have to ask yourself, with global conditions for living being better than ever on this planet and these new problems emerging, what the fuck is going on here? Now, I actually made a video going into some of these topics in a video called Are We Losing Our Will to Empathize, which the link will be in the description below, which we entertained some possibilities here. And of course, there's two trains of thought here. One is from the right wing, saying that this is all a sinister plot that is organized by central controllers, and another one that is mainly from the left wing, talking about how this is a systemic problem of people taking advantage of people, exploiting them because of the systems that we have around us. And personally, to be completely logical here, I think the truth is definitely somewhere in the middle. But again, it's multifaceted and very complex. One of the reasons could be because of the rise of the internet and the lack of people actually going outside, having physical activity, and actually interacting with people one-on-one. Social media being, of course, a big precursor to that. The medical and pharma industrial complex is another reason, with a high rise in C-sections, antibiotics, and opioid drugs, which pretty much addicts them to legalized heroin, which is creating creating a record level epidemic of opioid use, which is pretty much legalized heroin that doctors give out like it's candy, addicting people to narcotics to where they even have to go down to Mexico to get treatment, like we covered in this video, how to overcome opioids. An addict tells all. Again, this video will be in the description below for proper context. Another reason why this could be happening is because of our food industry being totally corrupted, as we're seeing the rise of fake, cheap food laced with sugar being mass produced, so it allows people to actually afford it, but sets off chronic inflammation and destroys your immune system. Divorce rates are still increasing, even though less people are getting married than ever before, which of course leads to broken homes, where children are more likely to have suicidal thoughts because of that, which is also indicative of people not getting along with each other, fighting with each other, not being in committed relationships, which again is a whole dichotomy of all the other problems that this new younger generation is facing. And that problem, I believe, is mainly defined by media, the marketing on mainstream media, social media. It's all becoming extremely hyper-sexualized. And I definitely point the full responsibility of that towards media, whether social media, mainstream media. The marketing behind it is very psychological, and it plays off our weaknesses in the human brain for, of course, their benefit and profit. Like we're seeing an increase in sexualization, the increase of spreading and normalizing pornography, which of course changes the neural pathways in your brain, which lead to profound and lasting horrible changes in the brains of normal human beings, and especially the younger generations that are still developing their brain. And what do you expect when the moguls behind the music industry make this the face of someone to idolize, to look up to worship, and see as a role model? And these are the people who are being promoted, who have the best contracts, and the media is talking all about, putting them out in the mainstream with lyrics that denigrate women, talk about prescription drugs, pornography, self-aggrandizement to its fullest potential. And that's if you could actually understand them. And I don't understand squat of what they're trying to say. Look at this winner here, whatever you call his name here, who was put in the hospital because he ate too many flaming hot Cheetos, which he said made him, quote, puke a little blood because he ate so much of that GMO garbage. And then the next day, he was photographed eating more flaming hot Cheetos. And then you kind of wonder to yourself, like, gee, I wonder why there's so many problems among the youth of today's day and age. Now, I believe this problem is mainly propagated by many factors, but the two of them that I wanted to address is, of course, social media, which has been scientifically proven to alter your emotions and to make you more depressed, with prolonged exposure resulting in emotional difficulties in many people, which, by the way, is done on purpose by the big tech monopolies that now alter, censor, and curate what you should see, promoting, of course, the likes of Jake Paul, another brilliant inspiration for the young people of this country, while censoring, of course, other educational or political ideologies that don't suit to their own personal biases. They also have gamified social media so it becomes addicting, using many psychological tricks in order to keep you on their websites, whether it's Facebook or Twitter or Google. And the second problem is, of course, our education system, which is really an indoctrination system that was set in place by the Rockefellers in order to have good factory workers. If you look at the way schools are set up, they are set up in a way not for critical thinking, but for repetition, even designing their lunch breaks so it could coordinate better for them to be better factory workers for big industrialists before. And that system hasn't been upgraded or changed. And it's becoming more of a crap hole cesspool than it has ever been before, as documented by these three professors in academia with the most ridiculous research papers that they could ever think of, including one where they described incidences of dog humping is evidence of rape culture. Yes, that two random dogs humping each other is proof, is evidence that there is a rape culture. They also wrote another paper where they completely plagiarized Mein Kampf, Hitler's book, and replaced it from a feminist point of view, as if Hitler was a feminist. And these papers were not just peer-reviewed, but published in highly respected journals also granting them academic awards for their work. And these were liberal professors who exposed the academic corruption that is happening in supposed higher education. Of course, not only exposing the bias that happens in these institutions, but also exposing the bigger divide and conquer schemes that happen, trying to, of course, pin men against women, black against white, doing whatever they could to skew our reality so we fight amongst each other, which again is a very correlating trend that the mainstream media has also been pushing on you, and also some hyperbolic personalities online that do get promotion from the big social tech media monopolies. Now, going back to this story, this academic prestigious journal that published these fake papers on literally how dog humping in dog parks is an epidemic and evidence of rape culture, they're not even apologizing for this and are not retracting the vehement agenda that they're trying to push onto people. Now, what I'm trying to get at here is a lot of the problems that we're facing come from larger institutions like the food industry, which is controlled by a few conglomerates, which works with governments, and they do such things like subsidize corn, which creates high fructose corn syrup. The medical industry, also controlled by a few conglomerates, and as we saw with the OxyContin scandal, corrupted with government, and sometimes, not all the times, sometimes more considerate about their profits than the general overall health and well-being of the American people. With social media, again, big tech monopolies that are given tax incentives and startup money from the government and work with the government to spy on you at the same time and collaborate together. And of course, the education and media, which are more loosely associated with the government, but there's still constant interchanging faces and people from these larger institutions that go in and out of government to corrupt the private sector to their own benefit. And I do have to admit, there are some ideological fallacies in my argument. It is not purely always the case. I'm speaking in, of course, mass generalizations. There are some things that these industries and these larger complexes that I'm talking about actually do help humanity, do help the fellow citizen, and actually do a good service. But at the same time, there's still a big layer of corruption that does need to be addressed, that does need to be fixed, and most importantly, does need to be understood. Now, who is responsible for the corruption of these industries and these industries corrupting the people of this country? Some would argue that this is all organized, that this is all planned, that there is a group of people sitting on multinational conglomerate corporations who are interchangeable between government and these private interests, who all swap seats and are all doing this on purpose. Other people believe that this is a systemic problem and that these institutions are bred on the corruption and exploitation of other people. And of course, these are all very just mass generalizations of the ideologies that are prevalent amongst dealing with this problem, which is fun to entertain, but honestly, I have to say, it does not fucking matter. It doesn't matter because you are the one who is fully responsible here. No one else. Whether it's a sinister group of people trying to corrupt the youth so they could be more easily controlled and manipulated, or whether it's just a systemic problem that is generated by profit, it wouldn't exist if it wasn't for you incentivizing it and participating in the traps that they lay out for you. If it wasn't for you on social media, you always watching porn, you clicking on this weird thing, downloading and watching this guy who eats flaming Cheetos and gets put in a hospital and then shortly after continues to eat hot flaming Cheetos, you just believing everything you're told, not thinking outside the box, not thinking independently, not studying and seeking alternative treatments, not eating a proper diet, not working out, not figuring out your own issues and how to treat your fellow human being, and not f***ing yourself, these industries wouldn't exist. And we wouldn't be as f***ed as we are, even though we have the best living conditions that we had throughout our entire human history. And I know I'm speaking in mass generalizations, but that is just my opinion. If you think I'm wrong on anything, let me know in the comment section below. I always answer questions within the first hour that a video comes out, so make sure you click the notification button if you want to be a part of the conversation. And just know, we're called We Are Change for a reason. Because we believe you have to take responsibility for yourself and be the change that you want to see in this world. This is what I have dedicated my entire life to. It is something that I am in the progress of, and I am definitely not a perfect human being. There's still so much work to do internally and externally, but I will be documenting that and what has helped me throughout my entire life on our email newsletter. So if you go to wearechange.org in the right-hand corner, put in your email. We will soon start sending out emails once a week, documenting our work and sharing very important tips with you, especially how to not fall into all these gosh darn traps that all these larger institutions and society has laid out for us. There's a different pathway in front of us, and that pathway is decided by you and your decisions only. So yeah. Ooh, that was a lot. Thank you for sticking for this long with me, and hell, I love you guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. Stay tuned for more.